Hi, this is IK Tutors, and we're here to do a problem requested by one of our uh, assistants. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so the problem states Aaron worked 2.5 hours on Monday, 3 3/4 hours on Tuesday, and 7 2/3 hours on Thursday. How many hours did he work in all? Okay, so how do we do this problem? Well, we see that we have to add up all the hours for each day. So let's write them out. 2 1/2 plus 3 3/4 plus 7 2/3. Okay, so now that we have our equation, when we just apply the rules of mathematics to it. So we look and see these numbers. What type of numbers it is? We have a whole number part and a fractional part. This is called a mixed number. And there's a general rule about adding mixed numbers or anything with fractions in it. If there's fractions involved, everything must be in fractional format. So that means we have to convert these mixed numbers into fractional format. So let's go ahead and do that over here. To do that, we're going to multiply the denominators, which are the bottom number, by the whole number, and then add that to the numerators, which is the top number, right? And then write that total above the original denominator. So that sounds like a confusing thing, but it's really simple. So the bottom number, the denominator is 2 times the whole number 2. That's 4. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 on the top is 5. So we're going to write that 5 over the original denominator of 2. And that's how you do it. So let's do it for the other two fractions now. Again, we're going to start with the denominator times the whole number. 4 times 3 is 12. Then we're going to add the numerator. So 12 plus the 3 on top, the numerator, is going to give us 15 over 4. And we write that total over the original denominator. Now we do the third fraction. 3 times 7 is 21, plus the 2 on the top, that's going to give us 23. And the original denominator was 3, so we're gonna write all that over the original denominator. Okay, so now we're adding three fractions, and the only rule we have to worry about is how to add and subtract fractions. Well, we have an index card over here to explain the two steps we need to do that. There's fractions, add and subtract. The first thing we must do, make sure, is we must have the same denominators. If we look at these three fractions, we have three different numbers in the denominator, 2, 4, and 3. But we have to have the same. So what do? We're going to do something, where we write equivalent fractions. But before we can do that, we have to find the lowest common denominator, right? So what is that? That's one number that all three of the denominators divide into evenly. So how do we find that? Well, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but here's one quick and simple way. You look at all three of the numbers, or both of the numbers in the denominator. You pick out the largest value. So here you have 2, 4, and 3. 4 is the largest value. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go through your times tables, right? And each time you do a timetable, you're going to see if the other two numbers, 2 and 3, divide into evenly. Because remember, lowest common denominator, all three have to divide into it evenly. So let's start. 4 times 1 is 4. Does 2 divide into 4 evenly? Yes. Does 4 divide into 4 evenly? Yes. Does 3 divide into 4 evenly? No. So we have to go to the next one. All three of them must divide into it evenly. 4 times 2 is 8. Then we test it again, right? We don't have to check 4 because we're already multiplying by 4. So we just check the 2 and the 3. So does 2 divide into 8 evenly? Yes. Does 3 divide into 8 evenly? No. So we have to try the next one. 4 times 3 equals 12. Now let's check again. Does 2 divide into 12 evenly? Yes. Does 3 divide into 12 evenly? Yes. So 12 is our common denominator because all three numbers divide evenly into this value. And that's how you do it. Always pick the largest number. You'll get it probably in 2 or 3 steps. All right. So now we have that. Well, now we're going to do this equivalent fraction thing that we mentioned. First, we're going to write equivalent fractions for each of the fractions here. And they're going to be having 12 as their denominator. So I mentioned equivalent fractions. So now I have to explain what we mean by equivalent fraction, what it means. So we're going to do that in the upper right-hand corner over here. So let's do an example. Let's say we have a fraction 3/4, right? And if we divide 3 by 4, right, we're going to get 0.75. So now we can see that there are 4 parts to any fraction. There's the numerator, which is the top number. I'm going to abbreviate this. There's the denominator, which is the bottom number. I'll abbreviate that as well. There's the fraction bar, which is that bar in the middle. Right? And this thing here is called the ratio value. Every fraction has a ratio value. We don't usually see it because you have to divide the numerator by the denominator to see it. All right. So these are the 4 parts to a fraction. And it is the ratio value that tells us whether or not the fractions are equivalent. All right. So 2 equivalent fractions will have the same identical ratio value. That's how we know. So how do we find an equivalent fraction? Let's say we have 3/4, 1 to write equivalent fraction. All we have to do is multiply the top and bottom by the same number. Let's pick any number, as long as we're multiplying it by the top and bottom and it's the same number. Let's pick 2, for example. 4 times 2 is going to give us 8, and 3 times the same number 2 is going to give us 6. Now, we said that if we divide this 6 by 8 and we get the same ratio value, these are equivalent fractions. And when you do this in your calculator, 6 divided by 8, it indeed does give you 0.75. So because they have the same ratio values, they are equivalent fractions. Right? Now that we understand that, we can go ahead and finish our problem. So coming back here, we're going to write equivalent fractions for each one of these, and the equivalent fractions are all going to have 12 in the denominator. How do we do that? We simply work on the denominator first. 2 times what gave us 12? 6, right? So now we know to get an equivalent fraction, all we have to do is multiply the numerator, the top number, by the same value. So multiply 6 times the top. We get 6 times 5 is 30. So 5 halves and 30 twelfths are equivalent fractions. If you divide 5 by 2, you're going to get a number. If you divide 30 by 12, you're going to get the exact same ratio value, the exact same number. So let's go ahead and write equivalent fractions for the next 2. Again, we say 4 times what gives us 12? It's 3. So we simply multiply the top by the same number to get the equivalent fraction. 3 times 15 is going to give us 45. And finally, we have the last fraction. 3 times what gives us 12? 3 times 4. And then we multiply the top by the same value. 23 times 4 gives us 1. Nope, sorry, not 1. 92. Yeah, 92. Okay. So now we've completed, we have these fractions written as equivalent fractions, and they have the same denominators. Now we can add them. We did step 1. Now we're going to go to step 2, which is we're going to keep the denominator of 12 and add the numerators. So we're going to add these 2. We're going to get 30 plus 45, because it says perform the operation. The operation is addition. It's going to give us 75. And now we're going to add that to the remaining 9 over here, 92, excuse me. And we're going to get 167. All right. So we added all 3. We got 167 over 12. We look at our answer list and we say, hey, wait a second. The format of these answers are not the same. They're a whole number and a fraction, which is a mixed number format. And my answer is in fractional format. So I have to convert from the fractional format to mixed number format. How do we do this? Very simple. We're going to divide the denominator into the numerator on our calculator, right? And we're going to get the whole number part. It's going to be 13 point something, something, something. That number to the right of the decimal, to the left of the decimal, the 13 is our whole number. The number to the left of the decimal, 13. Now the fractional part is going to have the same denominator, so it's going to be 12. Now how do we get the numerator? Well, we're going to take the original numerator here of 167, and we're going to subtract from that what we get when we multiply 12 times 13. Right? So if we multiply 12 times 13, we're going to get, let me figure this out really quickly. we get 156. And again, how do we get this 156? We multiply the 12 in the denominator here by the whole number 13. That gave us 156. If we take the difference, we see that we're going to get 11, right? 167 minus 156 will give us 11. And that's the value, that's the remainder actually, that goes right here. So our answer, the equivalent of 167 over 12 is 13 and 11/12. And this answer matches choice number D. So I hope that helps. If it did, please remember to like and subscribe so that we can continue providing these helpful videos, and have a wonderful day.